Kelly Vaughn, and welcome to Inside Indy. Well, did you watch? That is probably the most asked question in the past week. Did you watch? What I'm referring to is the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries about his sexual abuse accusations and sexual misconduct that was featured on Lifetime, 6 different episodes. We have to talk about this on Inside Indy, and it goes beyond R. Kelly, obviously, but in the studio today, I have joining us to get the conversation going are Donna Schiele. And she is a radio personality here in Indianapolis. You all know Donna, and she is the founder of the Hey Girl Foundation.
Correct.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We also have Gregory Meriweather.
Hey.
Who's an Indianapolis talk show host, radio and TV. You hosted the Expo show.
Yes.
Indiana Black Expo, which aired here on WHMB TV 40. Welcome
Thanks
to
for having me.
Inside Indy.
Yes.
Okay, the question was, did you watch? And it's all over Facebook in terms of people's reactions, and that's one of the questions, did you watch? And then those who did watch, what they had to say. And of course, those who didn't watch had a lot to say, but did you watch?
I did watch. I binge watched it all. It's very difficult to watch. A lot of information, things that, came out that I did not know, things that we did know that we kind of glossed over, I feel like. But yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. When I finished watching it, I was so disturbed that I had to kind of do something else before I went to bed.
Really?
Yeah, I was riled up. Yeah, it was that kind of.
And I'm going to ask Gregory the same thing, but what, just to get the conversation going, what disturbed you most initially?
I think it was just the pain of what the women, were talking about, the things that they went through with R. Kelly. There was one lady and she was grown. This was a grown woman in her 30s, but they went back to this house where he had these women supposedly, allegedly trapped in this house, trapped in the closet, trapped in the house. Ironic, not funny, but
thank you.
But yeah, so this woman couldn't even go back into the room, which was her bedroom. She didn't even want to go in there. Like, she was that traumatized. You know what I'm talking about?
They went back to the actual house.
Yes,
a house that he had actually lost in
foreclosure
or something.
So they're going through. So her bedroom, she couldn't even go in, and I kind of could feel that was not something she was faking. Like, she really couldn't go in that room. And then she did go into this black room that she said so many things happened in this room she can't even describe, and it was creepy. It was just unsettling, and that was one of the things I was like, oh my gosh, I could feel the anxiety and whatever she was going through. And I was going through a lot of emotions. Obviously, part of me was like, well, why'd you stay in this house? Well, who was keeping you there? And then the fact that I even thought of that question, and that she's a 30-year-old something woman, and then that she was so brainwashed that she felt that she had to. So how crazy is that? And how does someone get you to that point? I mean, it was just a lot of emotion just for that part, Okay. Yeah.
We'll go to Gregory Meriweather, who's going to tell us, did you watch?
I did not watch.
You did not watch?
No.
He didn't watch it.
I did not watch.
Why didn't you watch it?
I didn't watch it because I just didn't want, in the age of TV and how TV is now, and a lot of things are called reality that are not. And then looking at things from a ratings perspective, I believe that we can get on board with telling stories that are one-sided.
Are you calling it fake news?
I'm not necessarily calling it fake news, but I don't have that type of trust when I look at certain sources. And like I said, off air, I was like, why? I was like, why now? Why him? Is this to intervene to get R. Kelly to do something different, or are you just, is it for ratings? Is there money involved? There's just a lot of questions that came into my head. And then the other reason I, kind of flipped through and saw it, I just didn't like that it was running like a infomercial. I was like, R. Kelly gets all this airplay all day on Lifetime. And I just didn't get that. And I'm just, and then again, I'm not a person who ever wants to just get on board with vilifying anyone. I'm just not built that way. So I didn't take the time to even watch it.
Okay, what do you, because I got some feelings about
Yeah.
what he just said, but I want to hear what Donna has to say. Because this is actually going to be a little conversation
Right.
between
I get it.
It's fine. You know, I understand where he's coming from on that, but I feel like if just because you watch something doesn't mean you're on board with it, and doesn't mean that you have to agree with what you're watching. I feel like I'm a viewer that I'm not going to just watch something and then take it all in as facts. I believe that not everybody does this, but you should be able to dissect things that you're watching and you know, question certain things. Well, wonder why they did that. Wonder why they did that. In terms of why now, I mean, why
not now?
I mean, you know, it doesn't negate or take away from the fact that some of these things allegedly happened. So why not do it now? And you know, I think to me, it goes to the producer, Dream Hampton, and I'm very familiar with her. She's advocate for Black women and Black girls, and I think for her, she didn't like the treatment of how we've kind of pushed things to the side, especially the allegations of the tapes that came out with the 14-year-old back in the early 2000s that you know, kind of glossed over, and he did that basically. I mean, it was on tape. And so how we kind of just pushed it to the side and never really thought about the young girl who was in, 14-year-old girl who was in that. And I just feel like if any of these allegations would have happened to, if he would have done any of this to a white young lady at any point, this would have been looked at a long time ago.
Okay, so in that case, if that is true, whose fault is that?
Well, what were you
Because-
going to say? Because
Yeah,
he
whose
was like
fault
he
is
was about
it?
to say something to what I said.
Whose fault? I mean,
I
if we're blaming the system, so to
System,
speak.
right.
Right.
well, did he not go to trial for that tape?
He did go to trial, but they threw out a lot of the evidence.
And I guess that's
That
the other
doesn't
part.
mean that he didn't do it. They just threw out a lot of the evidence.
But I guess that's the part as a Black male that I look at. When I look and I say 85% of the people who are in prison never went to trial. So at some point people just say you're wrong and you accept it. And I think that when I look at even our people and how we've just gotten on board with just saying somebody said this about you and so therefore it must be true because they decided to put it on tape. So therefore we're going to go and spew this all over the place. And then we're going to get on board with a witch hunt and say, now this is what needs to happen to this person. I just don't agree with it. And if R. Kelly is, which I do believe, if he has a mental illness, then yeah, I do believe that he needs to get help.
Yes.
I'm just not one to want to get on board with what I'm seeing happening in our community currently, which is like, let's send this dude to prison. Let's figure out how to, this needs to happen to him and that. I just think that, there's a lot of stuff going on in our community that I think we should get on board with doing, but it just makes me sad to think that this is what our focus is as far as him is concerned, or as far as he is concerned. But I think that the other part about it is the disparity that we have overlooked. No one's talking. You would never see them talk about Elvis and Priscilla. You won't look and see Elvis moved a 14-year-old Priscilla in his house, and they will never remove him from being the king. But we will remove R. Kelly ourselves.
Well, then, whoa, okay. Just because Elvis did that, and I don't know that doesn't make it right.
Exactly.
And
Right.
and I understand your point, but sometimes some of the stuff that he did, and I'm not even going to say allegedly,
Right.
was so grotesque and to a lot of people over a long period of time that you have to pick your battles.
Right.
And so it's just like when we say, when Black people say Black Lives Matter, and then white people come up and say, well, all lives matter. I know that,
Right.
but let me have my moment to make my point.
Right.
Okay, so, or when we talk about domestic violence, we say, women are being beaten and murdered and raped. And then some guy comes up and says, well, men are abused too.
Right.
Yeah, all 2% of you.
Right.
I'm not saying you're not, but now is not the time to bring that up
Right.
in light of the seriousness,
Right.
the gravity of that particular problem. Then we'll come back to that later and talk
Exactly.
about that. So you know, and then my sister was talking about, was it, oh gosh, it was another rock star. Was it?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, and she said he suffered much during that time. Like his
did.
record sales, I mean, he was just like,
Yeah, he married his 12-year-old cousin. So,
yeah, that not like these people didn't undergo, you know,
I mean,
some
times
heat.
Times were different, but he
right,
did,
and you
he
think
did
about
have
it
some
too.
heat about
There were a
it,
lot of things. It was more acceptable to beat your wife
In the
back in
70s.
1952.
Right. Things
So
have changed.
a lot of that, when you're comparing apples and oranges,
Right.
if you're talking about Elvis Presley, you had to come
I
back
disagree
with somebody
that.
more recent than
I
that.
disagree. We could say Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld had a 17-year-old.
When did Jerry Seinfeld have a 17?
Oh, look it up. He
Okay,
did.
we'll have to Google that.
Jerry
But
Seinfeld had a
here's the thing: it
17-year-old.
doesn't make it right.
I'm not saying it makes it right.
Right.
What I'm saying,
there's
is
two questions here, though. There's the issue of marrying somebody young, and then there's the issue of dating young women and doing that on a repetitive basis.
Right.
Because what is the age of marriage in Indiana? What is it, 16? That you can legally marry?
I think so.
Marry at 16. Yeah.
Consent.
And even in places like Saudi Arabia, that's what we're fighting. This
Right.
whole thing of
Right.
old men or men over 18 marrying young girls. I once heard a statistic too. In Marion County, 50% of the teenage pregnancies in Marion County are caused by men over 18. So this is why this interests me.
Right.
Because when I saw it, there was that sense of relief that somebody's finally listening to this kind of stuff. And if it happened to R. Kelly and he's black, or what, and really, I don't even care.
Right.
Because I'm a woman too. And the abuse and crimes against women is so great that whatever it takes to get that attention.
Right.
And I don't want to necessarily process anything that is false.
Right.
But I think there's a thread of truth.
Right.
You know,
I
after
do too.
when 15 people say the same thing, okay, if it's
Right.
one person, that's too many. We
Right.
got to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about R. Kelly
Yes.
and all that mess after this.
Okay.
And we're back here on Inside Indy talking about the Lifetime docuseries, Surviving R. Kelly. And we've stopped in the conversation. It took a break. We're back with Donna Schiele and Gregory Meriweather. Donna, you were going to address the issue of other celebrities who married young women?
Well, yeah. You know, Gregory brought up the issue with Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and people who have married young teens or young girls, which is wrong, it's still wrong, but my whole thing with R. Kelly is that we're also talking about abuse and things that he's done to them mentally and physically to these young girls from watching the docuseries. And then, you know, with the whole allegation of it's more than an allegation, it was a tape of him, you know, urinating on a 14-year-old girl and doing other things to her. I mean, it's abusive. And so not only are we talking about him doing, you know, messing with underage girls, but there's abuse. Some of the stories that these girls told that he's doing and did to them mentally, physically. I mean, these are some of the issues that we need to discuss as well.
Okay. But I think some people would count marrying young girls as abusive. I mean,
Yeah,
Oh,
because I think
how young is young? You know,
Right,
16 is that the age? It's okay.
Well, I think that, you know, as a grown man, if you have the ability to speak to a young lady in a manner, the things you may be able to offer her that she's never experienced in her life. You know, I mean, a person who is still maturing in their mental and their physical, and you come in as a grown person with it's almost like you're playing a game that you know you can win. So I think the whole process is abusive. It's not just you know, what he allegedly done or did. I think it's the thing that I know that I'm dealing with a child's mind.
Yes.
And at that point, I think when men do that, I think it's abuse out the gate.
Yeah.
Well, they
I
did
agree.
say in the docu-series that he did not have the ability to read or write.
Correct.
And that may be why he, not to justify it, but migrated toward young people because he cannot deal with
yeah, and I mean,
adult
I'm not
female.
a psychologist, and you guys, can guide me if you think I'm wrong, but R. Kelly was abused as a young child. Okay, and then I've heard that a lot of times mentally we are at the stage where we were abused. We can go back to that state of our abuse. So if he was abused at age 9 or 10, in situations where he is feeling pressure or whatever, he can go back to that mentality of being that young person who was abused. So I don't know if that equates to him feeling like he needs to, because it was a woman who abused him, to feel like he needs to, now I have power and now I can control the situation, or I missed out as a young boy with younger girls, so now mentally I think I need to be with younger girls. I don't know, but obviously there's some mental health issues that we need to deal with that weren't dealt with. And so it came out in the way that it's coming out.
So would you agree with that there's a mental health issue?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how does he fix that? Because you can see it, you can see it, I can see it, but he didn't think he has a problem. Now, he wrote this song, I Admit, but even in the I Admit, it was like halfway admitting. It wasn't it was like, it should have been My Excuses is what it should have been called.
Well, R. Kelly always kind of writes about a little bit of clues of what he's doing. I mean, he wrote Aaliyah's song, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. I mean,
I thought that was distasteful.
yeah, well, there you go.
I agree with that.
Thank you. So he puts out a little, he's a little narcissistic in a way, like I know what I'm doing a little bit, and I'm gonna write this song about it.
Okay.
And that whole, I admit, I mean, really, 19-minute song about,
19 minutes, okay, that's a record.
That's
It's
terrible.
a 19-minute song.
So, Gregory, you were talking about black men going to jail.
Yeah.
Expound on that.
Knowing that, we tend to, from a criminal perspective, at one minute we're like, we want this, let's address mental health, right? And then we say, okay, now then we're over here like, now this person needs to go to prison. We talk due process, and then we say, forget due process, this person is guilty. I think we have to get to a point of finding a place that says either we're on board for fixing mental health or vice versa. Because I think that when I look at this, I'm challenged because we know there's a system. I'm not saying R. Kelly qualifies for this, but I am saying we do know that there's a system. I don't like to see us as black people become the system. It's almost like you see a different level of hate towards your own that you don't see in other communities. Other communities will be like, he needs to go to trial and get a fair shake, and whatever comes out of that trial is what happens to him. We've watched plenty of people walk. And the other part outside of prison is this, and I hope we get into it, is just separation of the artist and Robert Kelly. Because as black folk, they're not gonna take Christopher Columbus and throw him away. They're not gonna mute him. They're not gonna mute Thomas Jefferson. They're not gonna mute Cecil Rhodes. The greatest scholarship in this country, in the world, is the Rhodes Scholarship, but no one talks about Cecil Rhodes and what he did. And so when I look at this and I see us get on board with mute someone in their art, and you've got too many people along history that you've never muted. So I'm looking at us and I'm saying we need to get it together.
Well, but some of that muting, it's just like I was a huge John F. Kennedy fan. When I read about how he treated Jacqueline, and you talk about mega dog, my attitude has changed. And that this is really, let's touch on this and very quickly because I want to touch on a lot of topics. Is when someone who we do admire and love and something like this happens to them, should we mute them, or is it a matter of, okay, I know that about them, it is wrong, I grew up on this, it's just a part of my life and I'm just moving on, and yeah, I may not go out and buy it, but it's already in my head. What is this, the step, it's in your head, right? Yeah. So what do you think, to mute or not to mute? And that, not just R. Kelly, but any figure, including which means You got to cut
Everybody.
everybody slack.
Right.
right.
I mean, that's very true. And I just feel like the more you know, the more you understand about, people. Like if people are muting Christopher Columbus because people are learning more about it.
See, that's another thing. Some of that hasn't been muted because we're just now figuring it out.
But the more people figure out
He's
things.
been dead for like 1,000 years, but that's okay.
Exactly, but people are figuring
I didn't know
it.
JFK was such a dog. I didn't.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of men that we regard high that were dogs.
Pimps.
And I'm not going to go into the names
P-I-M-P.
because these are people we revere. These are people that
That's
we
real.
celebrate. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah. So that is something we have to look at. But the more we learn about people, I just feel like individually we need to decide what we're going to do with that. You just said, as a fan of R. Kelly, after you've learned what you've
I didn't say I was a fan. But
okay, but in terms of his music, you still have that in your head. It's something that
Yeah, I don't listen to him anyway,
Okay.
but I guess my opinion on it is I don't know that I would go out of my way not to listen to
Right.
it. I wouldn't go buy it and buy it in the first
I
place.
never did either,
But I
so.
don't know, and that's just not. It's not R. Kelly. It's anybody really that.
Right.
How far do you take it? And I think that's what
I think that's personal though.
I think that's what people on Facebook are struggling with. That's
Right.
And so, for example, you get a comment. I got a couple of comments here
Mm-hmm.
from some people on Facebook, if I might.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Lavish, it's happening, y'all. I'm cleaning up and playing my music, and R. Kelly came on. I decided down low, your body's calling me, all back to back. Okay, I forgot we were supposed to be mad. Now I'm questioning myself, where was them girls' parents? But see, now she was fine until she said that, because
Right.
now that's saying I don't want to accept it instead of
Right.
I accept what he's done. It was wrong.
Yes.
I just still happen to have his music. I like it, but I'm not going to support him any
Support,
further.
right.
When you bring in where's the girl's parents, now you're looking for an excuse.
Now you're trying to find it
I
out.
agree.
I agree with that.
But I also said this to a friend of mine. I said, I can listen to R. Kelly and hear something that was moving to me, and I mean not any of the wild songs,
Yeah.
but some of those songs where I thought it was just great content.
Right.
And so when I look at that, I'm like, man, you'll get so into it, you'll respect the artist.
Right.
And all of a sudden I found myself forgetting,
Right.
because I was like, man, this dude's talented.
Right.
And so would I mute him? No, I can't. I wouldn't mute him because I think that there's just too much history that's not muted. And then there's too much history that's muted
Yeah.
that shouldn't be. And so I wouldn't mute him.
Okay.
I'd mute Robert Kelly.
Okay.
I might roll with muting Robert Kelly.
I would mute Robert Kelly, R. Kelly, and the things that he's done in terms of music. I mean, I think that's personal preference. I just go straight to Cosby. I'm not muting the Cosby Show. I love Bill Cosby's show. I love the Cosby Show. So will I still watch episodes if they ever put them on, or my DVDs of the Cosby Show? Yes. I like the Cosby Show. Do I agree with what Bill Cosby did or what he was accused of doing? No. I mean, that's personal to me. I feel like that's like my dad or somebody that did something. That's like, whoa, but I wasn't that great of a fan of R. Kelly
To begin with.
So it's easy for me to mute him because of that.
Now, you talked about like past allegations. There is now they're calling for an investigation. We got to go just a minute. In Chicago, I think the Attorney General there, and then Lady
Yes.
Gaga has come out and said she's sorry for her association. I do think that there's something to be gained from this. I know it was refreshing to me to see
Yeah.
Chance the Rapper come out and say, I ignored what black girls said.
Right.
And that it is saying that the issue of abuse against black women, or any woman for that matter, in this country, especially in Saudi Arabia, I have no idea why
Yeah.
we're doing any business with Saudi Arabia.
Right.
If it brings attention to that, and if you count the number of women who are murdered, raped every day, in this country, in this world,
In this world, yeah.
okay, it's worth looking at, watching, because that's part of the message you get, that it's time to
Pay attention.
pay attention.
I totally agree.
Time's up.
Time's up.
Time's up. And I mean
Most
that
definitely.
literally.
No, and literally, okay, time's
But
up.
thank you both for coming in. Donna
Thank
Schiele
you.
and Gregory
Thank
Meriweather,
you.
thanks so much for joining us on Inside Indy. And maybe we'll do this when more stuff
Yes,
Absolutely.
we
hits
could
the
definitely
news.
do that.
Okay, thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching us. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.